And I am flying solo this evening. The usual moderators, Lynn and Elizabeth and others, are busy, uh, but I think I can handle it. For all of you who I can't see, which is almost everybody, I really prefer to see your smiling faces. Also, that gives me a chance to see how you're receiving that, the information, if it's too out there or too boring or so thank you for doing that. If you can, need to read the mission statement, and I will do that amidst letting people in. So here we go. So this is official. Helping Parents Heal is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting parents whose children have passed on. Through support and resources offered, we aspire to help individuals become shining light parents, meaning a shift from a state of emotional heaviness to one of hopefulness and greater peace of mind. HPH goes a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and afterlife evidence in a non-dogmatic way. HPH affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and encourage open dialogue. Attendance at this meeting is voluntary. We hope that participants will, trying to let people in, learn from and share with each other. Discussions here are confidential and are not designed to replace traditional therapy or counseling. Zoom meetings run by leadership are not confidential. These meetings typically feature guest presenters and are posted on YouTube so that affiliate members worldwide can watch and benefit. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers, allowing parents to learn about many possible ways to heal. This includes presenters covering progressive topics such as afterlife evidence and connecting with children who have passed. The views expressed by our guest speaker may or may not reflect the opinions of Helping Parents Heal leaders and members. So we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. All right, if everyone makes sure they're muted, so we're not hearing background noise, I appreciate that. I want to open this evening a little differently. Some of you know Lynn Holahan, who was my moderator during the Shining Light Parents interviews, and oftentimes for these Ask the Soul Doc um, classes. Sorry, I'm having to do a couple things at once here. And so this incredible thing happened last month, and I wanted to share it with you. I forget the date, but it was the ascension date. No, I'm sorry. It was the earthly birthday of their son, Devin. So this is Lynn and Jeff Holahan. And Lynn emailed me and said, I wanted to ask you about this little girl. She said there's a 3-year-old granddaughter of friends of ours, and she seems to know Devin. We told her this was Devin's birthday, and she started singing happy birthday to him. And she said, I think we ought to go out and get ice cream and celebrate his birthday. Of course, maybe she's just really smart and likes ice cream. Um, and then she said, can we call Devin? I'd like to talk to him. And Lynn said, she talks about him like he's right here, like she can see him. And she said, I can't wait to talk to her. I'll ask her grandparents first, of course, but I can't wait to talk to her and kind of pick her brain and see if indeed she's perceiving him. Well, about 2 hours later, she emailed me. She said, well, I think I got my message. And she shared me this photo. It's it's kind of grainy. It's not the best quality, but let me screen share here for a moment and show this to you. Again, keeping in mind what I just um, told you about. So here we go. This is Jeff Holohan. He's like 6'5". Here's this little 3-year-old girl. And look at this beam of light coming in. Can you see my cursor? Yeah. And the interesting thing is it is in front of her, but in between his legs, it's not there. And if if you look at it closely, there's a inner beam of white light inside this. Anyway, we were just overjoyed. And in my meditation today, I got the idea that if they haven't already, they ought to send this off to a photographic specialist and see if he can enhance that and clean it up. But anyway, you know, we talk about how we're beings of light. Again, everyone, please mute. And we talk about shining light parents, and your kids are beings of light, and they're in a realm characterized by love and light. And sometimes you get to see some photographic evidence suggesting that. So that was cool. So yeah, welcome again. And I just want to give a brief overview before I start entertaining questions. And I encourage you to ask your toughest questions. Whatever you ask, you can be sure other parents are wondering the same thing. You also can be sure I've heard it before, so you don't have to worry about stumping the soul doc. And so let me paint a quick picture for you, which you already know, your real self already knows. So let's start with this. The average person sees reality as though through a tiny pinhole. And then you wonder why things don't make sense. It don't seem fair, seem cruel. I mean, that's a scientific fact. The brain filters out about 90% of reality. Why? Because that was functional in the caveman and cavewoman days, because we need to see just what we need to see to survive. Saber-toothed tigers and which berries are poisonous and so on. However, that sensory filtration continues and it doesn't serve us very well. And that's why it's important to do centering practices. And I will refer to some articles on my website, soulproof.com, that discuss this more. And centering practices is article number 77, basically ways to quiet your brain. And you know the saying, be still and know I am God, or in this case, be still and know you are part of God, and so is your child. And no one really dies. Remember all the great news, which if you listen to just your brain, it's going to tell you the only thing that's really real is what you can see, hear, feel, and touch. But that's just wrong. And we know that from quantum physics. We know that from scientific research now on life after bodily death, scientific research on evidential mediums. So there's just all sorts of great news out there. And there's actually an article called The Great News, article number 19 at soulproof.com. And I recommend you print out those 11 things and post them where you can see them often, because most people, as Albert Einstein said, are operating under optical delusions. We can't really see the big picture of life. We don't really know what's going on. And so the more we do, the more we see it's all good, it's all God. That's one thing. The next thing to remember is that we really, even though we appear to be solid and separate and all that, we're really beings of energy, consciousness, life force, soul, if you want, who are eternal beings. So what do souls who are eternal do forever? Play golden harps and walk on golden streets. They get boring after a while. So just like us, they like adventures. We like to read different books and watch different movies and travel to different locales. Well, same way with souls. So partly they enjoy the adventure, the uniqueness, the experience, but always it's pointed toward loving service, growing helping others awaken, and so on. And so it's fairly common. And again, there's good scientific or clinical research for everything I'm saying. We have good evidence that souls will choose. Well, let's see, let me back up a bit. So souls will come to a place like Earth where we have spiritual amnesia because first of all, souls aren't produced perfect. If we were, we'd be automata, we'd be robots. We wouldn't have a choice. Also, we wouldn't have had a chance to experience good and bad, love and hate, those polarities. So we can really know what we want and what those things are. So a visit to Earth is very advantageous, even though, especially if you're a recently bereaved parent, it certainly may not seem like it. But souls will come to a place like Earth to learn more deeply, to develop strength of spirit. Yeah, I go like as if there's something under there, right? So it's kind of like if I'm working out and I say, I'm gonna build those biceps. I'm gonna curl this pin. And I wouldn't get much muscle growth, would I? But if I use bigger dumbbells, I would. Well, same way with soul growth. If you're always staying home with a capital H, the really real place, heaven, whatever you want to call it, um, you know the nature of reality, and it's all love and bliss, but you don't really know it. No, you really haven't internalized it. You really haven't grown. And plus, you're not serving others nearly as much, especially beginner souls who need experiences like this. So you may choose to come to Earth. Now, the problem is that many of us totally forget who we are. So the biggest predicament in a nutshell I can tell you is most people don't know who they are, why they're here, who walks beside them always. If you know that, and those are the existential questions. For example, in the Oracle of Delphi in ancient Greeks, it said over the top, know thyself. So when you really know who you are, an eternal being of energy, consciousness, and so are your kids, that's when you're free. That's when you're safe. Yeah, that's when you can have the peace that passes all understanding. And I attended theology school and I've studied different religions over the years, and um, primarily Hinduism, Buddhism, Sufism, and Native American spirituality, in addition to Christianity. I have no doubt that all the enlightened ones whose teachings birthed these religions or spiritual views knew all this. But the trouble is their works have been changed over the years, translations, interpretations, etc. But you can see them, for example, as Thomas Jefferson said in the Bible, like diamonds in a dung heap. So, most kids know, like, you got a God of love. You don't have a lake of fire, for burning the unrepentant. Those just don't go together. But when you see things like, you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free, or when you see with eyes that really see and hear with ears that really hear, I am the Father one, and so are you. There is no death. You're here to have this experience. Run the good race, fight the good fight. Let your light shine. Don't hide under a bushel. When you remember those key teachings, love thy neighbor, follow the golden rule. That's when you have some good guidance. So the evidence we have is that some parents will, or some souls will come to earth time after time and not awaken. They won't fulfill their Earth School curriculum. And so one of their soulmates, and I'm using Michael Newton's work, that on average we have about 25 primary soulmates and a greater number of tertiary and secondary ones. One of your soulmates, these are beings like you, eternal beings. They're one with the one. They can't die. You may have been together for thousands of years. They're like, okay, I'll be your kid in this lifetime. I don't need to go to Earth. I'm an advanced soul. I don't need to, go through the whole school thing, but I'll just come here for a while, maybe 2 hours or maybe 20 years. And when I pass, it'll break your human heart, but it'll help your higher self awaken. It'll help you remember the big picture of life, what we call the greater reality, the nature of reality. And when you do that, then that becomes an eternal gift because once you awaken, you take it with you. That
Bye.
becomes
See you
part of
tomorrow.
who and how you are. And let's everybody mute, please. And then no matter what you do, you brighten the corner where you are. You serve others. You have this wonderful adventure. Like Helen Keller said, life is either an amazing adventure or is nothing at all. And so this may sound like a lot of words, like, yeah, yeah, that's impossible. But actually, we know many parents now who have done it. So I want to show you, I'm going to screen share again and take you to a very important website that I want you to learn how to navigate and learn how to see these resources. And then we'll pick up, we'll start with the questions. All right, so can you see this, the Helping Parents Heal website? Okay, so at the top here, let me drag this down a little so we're away from the space bar. If you go to, so this is helpingparentsheal.org. If you go to YouTube videos and then click the first one underneath, affiliate leader / caring listener videos. So here's this amazingly youthful looking and ruggedly handsome man and my sidekick, Lynn. And these are the interviews we did. We started last October. We wrapped up in March, 130 parents. These are what we call shining light parents. They're some of the most amazing, loving, peaceful, giving, caring people. And they really give me hope for our planet because you realize when enough people waking up to the big picture of life, like we're talking about, at some point our world can come together. So do yourself a huge favor and watch these. Each one's about an hour long. So maybe, one an evening or a couple a week. Now, another resource I want to tell you about is under resources. So if you go to the top tab resources and then go to shining light resources, then you see all these things. How to watch the interviews I just showed you, the Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Linktree, all these ways that you can interact with others. Some of the books that HPH has put out. And here's the book with the best of interviews, Shining Light Parents Speak, a movie that was made, Life to Afterlife, and so on. Caring listeners, how to see the caring listeners and choose one. These people will talk to you for free. There's 35 of them. I oversee them and provide clinical support. And they're some of the most amazing of the amazing. Um, how to find a local group near you, how to find other online meetings that they just have a variety for like fathers, for kids who pass by substance use disorders. The kids had special needs, etc. There's just so many resources, and nobody really ever put it together. So Elizabeth and I have been working on this a lot. Here are the most common articles that I recommend for people, and they're at my website, soulproof.com. Free articles, free radio shows where I talked with all these people. Anita Morjani will be at the conference. Gary Schwartz and others who have passed. Michael Newton, founder of Life Between Lives. Wayne Dyer. So free radio shows you can listen to where we talk about these very things. Practical spirituality. How can people remember who they are, why they're here, and get through the toughest of the tough? And then finally wrapping up 4 experiential sessions, the holistic breathing, ask your soul. These links at YouTube allow you to use these audios, these techniques for free. They're only $15 normally, but pre-birth planning. So you can read about them and then list here. If you truly can't afford any of those products, any of my products, let me know and we'll send you a free digital copy. So I don't know what else to do. So that's a lot of resources. That's a lot of information. With that, let's move into questions. And I will need you to raise your digital hand. And at the bottom, you should be able to see how to do that. And then also, if you could wave your hand, I will, again, I'm on this. Okay, great. We've got Marina and then others. Let me know as we go and we'll figure this out. All right, Marina, are you unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Lately, I have like comments from very few friends that's left because I practically lost all my friends after my son passed away. And they keep telling me, how long are you going to stay in your grief? Let him go. Let your son go. You don't let his soul to get peace. I say, what do you mean? I'm trying to learn how to communicate with him using different methods like channel writing or some other stuff. So far, I have not been successful, but that's not the point. What do you think about them saying that my attempts to contact him, my attempts to talk to him, or to write letters to him, or any way of attempting to contact him does not let his soul go in peace. And I'm only doing harm for him and for myself.
Okay.
What do you think?
That's an excellent question. Thank you very much. And how long has it been since your child passed?
Less than 11 months.
Okay. So if everyone else would block their audio, because the problem is when you make a noise, then you get shown up on the screen. So see if we can get Marina, keep your unmute, please, so I can see you and not. Yeah, so speak up there, please. And whoever has a dog beside them on a couch, please mute yourself. So, where's my assistant? Help. All right, Marina, back to your question. First of all, people are well-meaning, but a lot of people just don't know what to do. So if for the person that's trying to unmute, it's in the lower left of your screen. You'll see like a microphone icon. Just click on that, and then you should see a red line through it. No, we're still seeing you. All right, this may not have been the greatest idea. But we're going to get through this and maybe even have a few laughs in the process. First of all, Marina, you'll get all sorts of advice. Some of it's horrible, as you know. But here's what we know. First of all, your son, did you say?
Yes.
Okay. Only part of his energy is needed to contact you. In other words, if you use my facilitated afterlife contact technique, which was listed in those resources, and you can learn about in article number 9, or if you contact him via an evidential medium, or if you just talk to him, that doesn't at all detract from what else he's doing, because again, we're beings of energy, okay? We're beings of consciousness. Michael Newton's work suggests that on average, souls only need about 40% of their energy to have an earthly experience. Well, now your son is in a really real place and he has all this energy. So you're not detracting from other things he's doing. You're not jamming him up. The other thing is, you know, the saying, as on earth, so in heaven, or vice versa. What happens if somebody calls you and you don't want to take the call? You're busy. You don't answer, right? Well, we have some evidence it's the same thing in the next realm. He just won't answer you then. So if he can't. So again, you don't have to worry about this, and just follow your heart. Now, one of the things that came through loud and clear in our interviews was everyone grieves differently. And different people have different timing when they're ready, to contact and to explore communication and so on. Some people need to grieve for a while, and that's just fine. Others, like Elizabeth Boyson, she was starting a Facebook group in less than a week after her son Morgan passed, figuring out how to help other parents and how to create an organization that focused on hope and that their kids were really alive because she had a shared death experience. Morgan hugged her right after he passed. So she didn't want any part of these groups that pass around a heavy stone and 20 years later, like, my name is, Maria. I'm a I'm a bereaved parent. No, you can be a shining light parent. And I discussed that in articles number 82 and 93, and I'm pretty sure that's correct. How to do that, how to make that transition. Yeah, 93 and 82. From deeply grieving to shining light. Does that answer your question, dear?
Uh, Kind of. I think I jumped into this process too quick. I didn't give myself time to grieve, and he was the purpose of my life for 21 years. So I did everything for him. And he lived in other states, so I didn't see him, and I still expect his calls.
Okay, I
So,
understand. So in that case, what I would recommend for you is my technique that's called holistic breathing. And it's one of those free courses under resource. And you can learn more about it under article number 70. And so it's the most powerful way I know to release deep grief, because you just said it. You haven't had a chance to grieve fully. And here's something that's really important. All of your children are in a realm characterized by higher energies: peace, joy, love, gratitude, enlightenment, etc. So it's like they're on, if you're trying to tune into a radio station, they're on FM 104. But if you're stuck in, and understandably so, no criticism, you'll come around when you're ready. But if you're stuck in deep grief and sadness and depression and hopelessness, it's like you're on AM 98. So that's why you're not going to pick up your children as much. So one of the real driving factors that arose in these interviews was parents said things like, I was determined to perceive my child. I was going to develop a spiritual relationship to help heal my physical pain. And so they purposely, moment by moment, sometimes choose higher feeling thoughts. So they're more on the same wavelength as your child. And guess what? After a while, they start perceiving their kids more. So if you want to learn more about higher energies, emotions, and ways of being, see article number 108 at soulproof.com. And finally, Marina, I will say, and to all of you, if you have questions or you don't get to ask your question, or if you have follow-up questions, email me, mark@soulproof.com. And it's under that resources, mark@soulproof.com. And I will, I'm super busy, but I will give you a brief but information and resource packed answer. So I'm glad to do that. It's very, very meaningful to me. It's a sacred opportunity. Okay.
thank you. Thank you, Mark. Any update on the cell phone?
Uh, well, I'm not supposed to talk about that much on the Helping Parents Heal stage, because HPH has to be careful that they're not perceived as endorsing any technology or other business. But if you want to learn updates, just visit the soulphone.org website and sign up for the newsletter. I'll probably be sending the next newsletter out. But there's lots of good news. Unfortunately, I can't say a lot of it about it because of security and so on. But I will just tell you it's all good. And um, if you're around if you're on Earth for 2 years, I'd say you're most likely be able to use the Soul keyboard, maybe 3, so you can text and type with him, and maybe 4 or 5 be able to talk. But these are, it's so complicated to perfect this technology. If it were easy, it would have been done a long time ago. Edison and Tesla and Alexander Graham Bell and Marconi, the inventor of the radio, they all tried. Um, but we're moving along steadily. All right. Take care. And let's see who else has their hand up. Let's go with Pamela.
Hi, can you
Hello.
hear me?
I can.
Okay, I'm on my phone, so I'll try to stay closer to the speaker. I have so many questions, but I'll just have to email you. But I do have a question tonight that's rather complex. So you wanted complex questions, so here you go. Okay. I did one between life regression sessions in with Rob and what's Lizelle
Right.
and Rob Swartz and Lizelle. I can't think of Lizelle's last name.
Fricka. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm about my son. My son Paul was 23 when he transitioned by suicide, and that was 27 months ago. Okay, he lived with us. We knew he was depressed, but obviously, we didn't know that, today was the day he was going to take his life. But anyway, my son was a very unique person. From the time he was in the second and third grade, he had created a shadow box of this town in Germany. He was in the second or third grade, and it was like in a cigar box, and he created this shadow box of a place in Germany. He created a swastika, which I don't know where he got that from, because he never watched anything, or we never, showed him anything, and he didn't have a computer back then. So there was a swastika, and then there was a Coptic church, and then there was a store. The name of the store was Hahnemann's, with 2 N's at the end. And I Googled it, and there is a store, or there was, I think they're out of business now, but there was a store in Germany with that name and the
Yeah.
same spelling. It was kind of like the equivalent of our Whole Foods.
Yeah, I understand.
Um,
So he had what are called past life memories, quite like,
yes.
and those
Mhm.
carried over into this lifetime. So,
So this is my question here.
mhm,
Um, during this between life, or during this between life soul, let me just say BSR, because during this BSR, I got a strange rendition of a past life. It was like it was in the Wild West, and I was this woman in the Wild West, and with a wagon train and that type of thing. And that is not at all what I would perceive what a past life would be for me. My ancestry is, of course, in Africa, and I have a lot of ancestry in Europe. So that didn't make sense to me. So I'm wondering if my son could be covering up or could be protecting me from my past life with him, because I've been told that I was his wife in his last past life. And he came to me in a visitation and confirmed that.
yeah. Well, you're right. That's a complex one, and let me mention a few articles that can help because it's not one I can answer in 2 minutes, certainly. First of all, for the way he passed on, see article number 4 at soulproof.com, when a loved one changes the world via suicide. To learn more about past life regressions, including past life memories, which often happen in children without hypnosis. These are spontaneous. See article number 102. And then finally, to learn more about life between lives therapy, article number 98. I trained with Brian Weiss, who is a pioneer in past life regressions 25 years ago and was certified to do this. And I've led a number of individual, but more group ones. And I developed an audio so that you can do past life regressions. And it's on my website, soulproof.com. So you could have those. But Dr. Weiss made the point very clear that just because people experience something in a regression, it could be metaphorical. It doesn't mean that actually happened, number one. Number two, I don't like the term past life regression because it strongly indicates that these experiences happen in a linear, sequential manner, when in fact, all life is going on at once. You know, it's a dance of energy. It's God breathing in and out. So all of these different experiences are going on. So I don't know if you've heard of string theory, but it's the idea that one of the ways to describe the nature of reality is these vibrating strings of energy. And as humans, we can perceive different slices of those. So if you look at this slice, you know, you're this person you are now, and you look at another slice, maybe you're a Viking or a peasant woman, but that doesn't mean you were that person. You were on Earth. And Stefan, I'm gonna mute you. And Pamela, speak up again, please. So you're on the video. Say something. Okay,
Okay.
that's it. So, so that doesn't mean you were that person for 90 years any more than you really are what you look to be right now. And I know it's kind of mind-boggling, but if you get the idea, David Bohm, B-O-H-M, who is a contemporary of Albert Einstein, he was a top quantum physicist, Princeton, but he also was dear friends with Krishnamurti, a prominent Hindu yogi, and he merged what Hindu rishis saw thousands of years ago with quantum physics, and they just match. And he said that really what's going on is a sea of energy. And periodically there'll be a little ripple on this sea of energy. And to the limited human brain, it looks like a lifetime. But really, it's just an energetic event. And the Buddha talked about this. He was asked, you know, what's a human incarnation about? He said, go down to the seashore and watch waves crash against rocks. He said, so each one of us is like a drop of water in the divine ocean, integral parts of all that is. But when they hit the rock for just a moment, that drop of water is suspended momentarily. During that time, that drop of water, if it had like a human consciousness, could say, oh no, I could die. I'm separate from everything. I'm so alone. Oh no, my other drop of water friend just died. You know, go through all that needless baloney and then it drops right back into the ocean and remembers who it really is. So the more we can do that, the more we can get through anything, including this. Any follow-up questions to that, dear?
No, I did have another question. It wasn't related, and I wrote it down, and now I can't find it. But it was about growth after suicide. I mean, I think it takes parents of who are survivors of the suicide loss of their children much longer than other parents, than maybe parents whose child was murdered.
I would say it can take longer, but it doesn't necessarily. But go ahead.
I don't know, maybe not necessarily. And I'm a nurse and I'm a researcher, and I would like to research that topic for my next study. But I think it's different. I think the grieving is different.
It can be. We figured out that of the parents we interviewed, about 25 to 30% of them, their children passed by suicide and or overdoses. And so certainly there can be more guilt because parents always say, I should have seen it coming. I should have done something else, and so on. So yeah, when a child passes on that way, there can be more guilt, but the big
Yeah.
message is there doesn't have to be, and especially when you awaken to all this. In other words,
Yeah, but it takes longer for us to awaken, is what I'm saying. To me, it does it anyway. But
yeah.
the factor that I've been observing, and I don't know, I haven't looked and seen if anybody studied this, but if you have another child, then you tend to grieve, differently than people who have lost their only child.
Well, yeah,
Or
look into these topics, but
Mhm.
just keep in mind that what society says, like, it's going to take a long time and you never get over it,
No.
isn't necessarily what has to happen. And we have a lot of parents that have shown it. Well, let's someone else ask. Thank you for those
Thank you.
excellent questions. All right, Samsung SM-98N98. Um,
Hi,
hello.
I'm Jennifer.
Jennifer. And could
Yes.
you move your camera down so I can see your face a little more? There we go. All right.
Um, my son transitioned 2 years ago. I've been asking him to come to me in dreams, and that hasn't happened. However,
I'm
last week
sorry. Did you say he has or has not come to you in dream?
he has not.
Okay.
And then last week on Wednesday was his 2-year anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
And on Saturday, I usually text him once or twice a week, and I've always asked him to text me. On Saturday, I got a text from him.
Yay. Tell me about it. Can you move? Is there a chance you can move your hand? I'm seeing like a little
Sorry,
bit of
wait.
your face. There we go.
Okay. Well, it at first it sounded like something from Suzanne Giesemann about the one and I am and that type of thing. And then it went into, I know you miss me. I know you love me. I know you can see me. I know you hurt. I know you cry. I see you cry. So my question is, they can do this?
One more time. Your image just got really
Oh,
dark.
I'm
If you can
sorry.
turn your camera away from your
There
window.
we go.
Uh,
Oh, sorry.
okay, that's
Is that
better.
better? Okay. Um, so he said he missed me, he loved me, he saw me cry, he
So
saw me hurt.
excuse me, to be clear, Jennifer, these are texts that came on your phone?
This is a text, yes.
And did this come from his number or come in randomly or what?
I was texting him, which I usually do, and then it came through as a text from your child in heaven on my feed, like I had sent it, but I hadn't.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, those are actually fairly common. One of the quote easiest things that those living in the energetic universe can do is manipulate energetic devices, technology. And so I'll tell you a cool story, but so you're telling me about that, but you have a question about it?
I just want to know if it's real, if it's possible.
Well, it's definitely possible. There are a lot of stories like that. And let me give you an example. So when we started these interviews, I think it was the second week, and Lisa Wilcoxon was on. We had Lynn and I and 6 moms. And so we were going through the introduction before we started recording. And Lisa shared she's a medium herself. She'll be at the conference. Excellent. And she said both her boys had transitioned. And one of the other parents said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And Lisa said, well, thank you, but it's okay." She said they're in touch quite often. They're really good at manipulating electronic devices. Well, just then, balloons and fireworks shot up above my head. So you can see my Zoom window. Well, there were 8 of us on the screen. So, the windows were pretty big. And so these are shooting up in the air. And I thought one of the other parents did it. And one of them said, "Wow, that was cool, Mark. How'd you do that?" I said, "I didn't do it. I thought one of you did it." And nobody did it. And Lisa said, "That's my boys. That's what I
Oh
was
my
telling you
goodness.
about." They're always doing crazy stuff like that. So yeah, just take it. Don't analyze it too much. That's your brain again that says
I know.
that can't be really real. He passed on. Well, no, he didn't. He's probably right beside you if you could see. And so, yeah, just take it as a signal. And these are the kind of things, by the way, to the point that Pamela and I were just talking about, that can awaken you much quicker than you think, can lighten and abbreviate your grieving. So you just say,
Definitely.
okay, thank you for that sign. I know he's here. I'm going to help others in his honor. I'm going to find the silver linings and the blessings to this. I'm going to make him proud of me. I'm going to be on that same wavelength, all that. And here's another one that surfaced, and this kind of surprised me. A number of these Shining Light parents said, you know how they got to this point? They focused on gratitude because it's quite possible that souls who pass on pretty quickly are more evolved and advanced souls. And they said, when I shifted to why did he pass on so young, to thank you, God, thank you, universe, for gifting us with this evolved being for 15 years. Boom, that shift really took off and made a change.
Wow.
Yeah. Anything
Um,
else on that?
no, and you're right. I mean, I've been waiting because I have been a member of Helping Parents Heal for a long time. And I just, you want to believe, but your brain tells you, no, that can't be happening. And until something like this happens to you, it's hard.
Sure, sure. And let me tell you this, and in many cases, it appears that it's not that the children aren't transmitting, because
Right.
they're trying, it's that the parents can't receive. And in my article number 9 at soulproof.com, I talk about a number of things you can do to increase the chances that you'll perceive his very real presence.
Okay. I'll check it out. Thank you.
All right, take
All right.
care.
Take care. Okay. Bye.
All right, Debbie, if you can unmute and speak up, please.
Hey, how are ya?
There we go. Great. And you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having this tonight. Two questions. Well, first one isn't a question, but when you mentioned about the fireworks, I was doing a grieving session, with Sandy B. Light or Adam B. Light. And as I was speaking with her via Zoom, I saw fireworks behind her head, and I just kind of freaked out a little bit. And then later on, while we were speaking, a little shadow of the thumbs up was floating through the picture also. And I thought that was a little strange. And it might have been on her part because her son's pretty strong. It's a pretty strong spirit. My son had recently passed. But yeah, I'm glad to hear about the fireworks thing because that happened to me too.
Yeah, it can be a little mind-blowing.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
remember, for everything, I've been in this field for 50 years. And when that happened, I thought, oh, so that's the way these interviews are going to go, huh? So it's like, here we go. Hold on to your seat.
So my question is, can the soul or the spirit, I guess you would say the spirit of the soul, can be in not the two physical places at once?
This is the topic of multilocation, and I think I discussed it in article number 75. Yeah, at soulproof.com. Native Americans, other firsthand experience. There's high energy quantum physics views for it. It certainly surfaces from Michael Newton's Life Between Lives work that, I mentioned on average, only about 40% of a person's total energy, consciousness, is needed to manifest an earthly experience. The rest of that it appears, we can't say scientifically yet, but it appears can manifest in other formed or formless ways. So is there a reason you ask about that?
No, I was just, you know how people, I've run into several people at times and they say, oh my God, do you have a twin? Do you have a sister? You look just like somebody else. And I was just curious as to if that's something that could be possible.
Mm-hmm. And thank you for bringing that up. Here's a very real and hopeful spinoff on that because, of course, parents miss their children. I mean, we had one mom who all 5 of her kids passed, and we had another with 3. And I mean, this is tough.
What?
However, it's quite likely that while one aspect of yourself is on earth grieving his or her loss, another aspect of yourself, you two are together right now in a different time, space, slice of life. And so that's a really cool thought. And there's, again, some good evidence for it. It's quite likely. So I get the image of your higher self and your child's higher self cheering you on, saying, come on, Debbie, come on, you can do this. Don't you remember? We set this up. You got this.
I'm working on it.
Yeah. All right. Well, you're doing it. I've been seeing you during the meeting and you're smiling and you're right there and you're nodding. So yeah, you're doing great.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. All right. Monica, you're up. If you would unmute, please.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Hello.
I'm sorry I missed the beginning meeting, but my son Jason, 22 years old, December 1st will be 4 years. Every word you say helps. I'm nodding too. And a follower. I really appreciate all your help and respect you, all your knowledge and what you learned and your background, et cetera, et cetera. One question. Well, there's a couple parts, but the conference coming up, will that be Zoom accessible or not?
That's a great question, and I don't know for sure. They are going to record the keynote speakers, but I don't know if they're going to record everyone. But that's something you could visit the website or email Elizabeth or Irene.
Okay.
But it will be known. In other words, after the conference, they'll publicize, hey, if you couldn't make it, here's how you can watch and what you can watch.
Wonderful. So it's like swimming upstream, never get ahead. I mean, never. Anyway, part of the history. I liked everybody what they said. I was late, unfortunately, technology. But I do have your breathing tape, your holistic.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to force myself to do it more. I have so many sticks in the fire. Anyway.
Well, there's another reason why you might resist that, and that is because it's painful.
Yeah, and it's hard work. Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that hundreds of times over the last 25 years. And in the beginning, I remember I cried my heart out. I mean, I had snot running down my face at one point. I was crying so hard. However, it's much easier to get that out than to walk around, carrying around with it. So I encourage you to use that.
Any tips? What time of day? Or I tend to, just so many duties since I'm retired, and it
Well, yeah,
anyway.
make it a priority. And
Okay.
in the introductory track, let's see, if you visit the article number 70 at soulproof.com,
Okay.
it goes over a lot over recommendations before the session that I probably didn't do in the HPH session because I didn't have much time. But yeah, generally you want to do it when you're more rested, so you have the energy, because it takes a lot to go through that. And then put that to use and email me and let me know if you have any follow-up questions.
Well, I think if I remember, you said get a hold of you, and then there was another step, but I didn't feel like I did it religiously or repetition enough to get a hold of you again. So I just have to buckle down and
Yeah, well, just remember the benefits, and it's well worth it. And I bet it's much more important than some of the other things you're doing. All right, let's let someone else ask a question here, but thank you for that.
thank you.
My pleasure. And well, first of all, it's 8 o'clock, but I'm glad to take a few more questions. And I see, okay, and Dinah and Bill, if you would unmute. Okay, great.
Hello. Hi, Mark. Thank you. Just a quick question, but maybe complicated. So I was just wondering if you have ever heard of anybody whose maybe son was supposed to go at a certain time and didn't. Our son, 2 years before he transitioned, almost transitioned the way that he transitioned. He drowned. And he came home and said, Mom, it was so crazy. All I could think about was you and Dad and what would happen to you if I drowned. And then it was kind of like after that happened, it was his high school senior year. He was super healthy kid, and after football, his body just fell apart. And the doctors could not figure out what was wrong with him. And he was going to the emergency room like 3 times a week. So it was really crazy. Never found out what was wrong with him medically. Everything came back fine. And then sure enough, 2 years later, he drowned. And I've always wondered, was the universe just,
Yep.
was it supposed to go?
And your son's name?
Brady,
Brady. And how long ago did he pass?
2 years ago.
Okay. Well, for one of the questions I asked these 130 Shining Light parents is, what is your view on there being a meaning and a timing behind your child's passing? And it's a big question because from a limited earthly perspective, it seems horribly senseless, cruel, like there's no God or God's asleep at the wheel. But many of them told stories that indicated, yes, there is a timing and a meaning. I'll just give a couple examples. The one little girl was 5 years old, went to Presbyterian church, and the Sunday school teacher said, "Draw a heaven," and so the little girl drew 3 things and then brought it home, and her mom said, "What's his first thing?" And the little girl, and it was, I think it was Presbyterian church. The little girl hadn't been exposed to any New Age or higher thought teachings. And the little girl said, "This is where you go to choose where you're going to live when you come to Earth." And her mom said, "Well, that's interesting. What's the second one?" "That's where you go to choose your parents." "What's the third?" "That's the book of life, but you can't read that till you pass on." And the mom said, "Oh my God." And then for a couple years, the mom said she learned from her daughter. Her daughter just remembered what we've been talking about, the big picture of life. Well, then, as often happens, the little girl got involved in school and kind of forget who she really was. You get indoctrinated into your earth suit. Well, when the girl was 12, she said, "Mom, I've been worried about death lately. What happens? I'm kind of scared." And her mom said, "Honey, you used to teach us about this. Don't you remember?" And the little girl said, no, I don't. So they had good long talks about it. 2 weeks later, the little girl fell over dead from a cerebral aneurysm.
Oh.
And so you hear multiple stories like that, and you think, wow, there really is a timing. So my impression was, and if you guys would speak up, please, one of you. For some reason, I'm seeing
Hi.
Debbie, even though you're muted. Yeah, Dinah or Bill, if you would speak up so you can get you back on the
We're-
video. Okay, there we go. So my impression is that when he almost passed, may have been an optimal time, but he didn't want to go. He didn't want to leave you all. He didn't want, maybe he didn't feel like you were ready. So then you had how much time? 2 years in there before you? Yeah. So you had time to let that sink in. I presume you had meaningful conversations and all that to prepare for when he did really change worlds. Does that feel right to you?
We wrestle with it, but I really appreciate your 2 cents on it. That's great. Thank you so much.
Excuse me, I got some water down the wrong pipe. Well, you're very welcome, and I can see the pain and sadness in your faces. And I encourage you to use that holistic breathing technique that I mentioned, because that will just let you get so much of this out. Because, man, I know it's tough, and I know it's the most natural thing for humans to grieve and be sad, but I can almost hear him yelling, "Come on, you guys. We're in this together. We're soulmates. We've been together before this Earth experience. We'll be together again. Come on, bump it up some so we can visit more." So yeah, there's more smile, but not Dad. Is it Bill?
Yeah, yep.
Have you taken part in the dad's group on Wednesday evenings?
Yeah, I've been there quite a few times.
Okay, good. Because so often dads, well, moms and dads feel responsible, but especially dads. We got that father bear thing, the warrior. I should protect my child, and dads, that can really weigh heavily on a person. And so it's important to let it go and realize he was only your son in this earthly experience. He may be may be your teacher from another view. And so if you can realize he is fine, he's probably an advanced, he's an eternal soul, and he's all around you,
Yeah,
hoping you get this.
I believe all that. And sometimes the knowledge of all that doesn't help me one single bit with the experiential grief.
Yep, I understand. And that's the reason for going beyond words and doing things like the holistic breathing. Another one of those techniques is called Ask Your Soul, Angels and God. So it does this. The holistic breathing is breathing for 45 minutes. But the Ask Your Soul one is deep relaxation and guided imagery. So you can turn down your brain and then get in touch with wisdom from your higher self and your spiritual support team. So yeah, you said exactly. You know that intellectually. Now you need to internalize it so you know it in the depths of your being.
Yeah, yeah. No, I appreciate your input. Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Hmm.
Anyone else before we part for the evening? All right, well, that looks like a good place to stop. I'll be doing this Ask the Soul Doc session live at the conference, by the way, for those of you who will be at the conference. The next HPH newsletter will come out in a few days. And in it, because I've had some people say, we can't make the conference. what are you going to present? How can I benefit from it? And so I outline in there just what I'll be doing and how people can experience it on their own. So remember my offer. Email me with your biggest questions, challenges, mark@soulproof.com, and know that you're not alone. You don't have to go through this alone. We have so many resources. We have so many wonderful parents who were where you are now and want to help you, even if it's a little improvement. You deserve that, and your kids are definitely rooting you on to do that. All right, let's have at least 3 air hugs before you go. Love you all. God bless. Let it shine. Let us know how we can help.
Thanks for the support. Amen.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you,
You're
Mark. That was
very
great.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you
Mark.
very much.
You're welcome. Hi, Carol.
Thank you, Mark.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's a sacred honor.
Same here.